Hey, welcome back to Dogtography. I'm Andrea Fleury, and today I've got episode number 2 of my fish photography for you. So last week we did episode number 1, which was a breakdown of all of my tips and techniques and suggestions for how you can photograph your fish, from the equipment that I used to the lighting that I ended up having to bring in to like all of the things that went wrong. So if you're interested in going back and having a look at episode number 1 for more of the like how to take pictures of your fish, I'm going to link it up here so you can go and enjoy that. But on today's episode, I wanted to kind of take you onto the computer with the images that I took to show you my process of, just a second, we'll just get rid of the cat. Okay, let's show you my process of how I cull through the images, what I'm kind of looking for, so you can see what most of them actually look like, that they're out of focus and just garbage, and how I go about editing them in Lightroom, and then just take them over to Photoshop for a couple quick adjustments, and then for the final results that you can see at the end. Stay tuned. I'm Andrea Fleury, and welcome to Dogtography. My channel is all about how to take better images of your dog and how to create some really super fun memories. I walk you through different tips and tutorials and techniques. I sometimes show you behind the scenes of my professional career as a dog photographer, all while just trying to have some fun and enjoy time with our dogs. Okay, so we're gonna go onto my computer here, and now I've pulled up all the images that I took in the entire time that I was shooting the other day. Now, it was a lot, so there's a few things that I've learned that I'm gonna show you as we go through these, but you can see here in these beginning images how dark the picture actually is. So this is just me trying to get the fish to go into the right location. And now you can see how absolutely out of focus some of these are. So my camera was having a heck of a time trying to focus on him. Now, when I did this before, I do seem to recall the same thing happening. So I had my aperture set at f1.8. And what that means is it is giving this fish a very, very small slice of focus to even like be sharp for. So quite often in a lot of these images, I'm just trying to find an example here, but you'll see that the tail is maybe in focus, but the head is not, kind of like in this example here. You can see the sharpness like in the tail and in the fins, but when you come down to the face, let me just kind of zoom in here so you can see that is out of focus. And it's because he's not flat, he's not on the same plane. I know fish kind of like, usually you think swim in the same plane, but their bodies are moving and it really becomes apparent. So I ended up adjusting my aperture. The good thing about shooting with it wide open is that it is letting in the most amount of light. And what is really good about letting in the most amount of light is then you need less artificial light, or it also means you need less ISO. So that's why I started with that. But I ended up going up to f2.8, and that helped a little bit. The plane of focus is still very, very small in that, but it does make like an incremental difference. I did have to increase the ISO to compensate for it, but hey, I mean, you do what you got to do, right? So I'm just showing you here that there's a lot of outtakes. A lot of these I look at and I'm just like, they're way too dark. If I like bump up the whites or just even bring up the exposure, you can see, you know, what's in focus and what's not, and there's just not enough there for me to do anything with. Now the dynamic range on my camera, which is how much information it gathers between the brightest parts and the darkest parts, is a lot. And even with that, it's just not working here. So that was why I was struggling with his position in the tank. He was trying to stay at the surface and in the corners, and he just wasn't getting down to where the strongest light is in the tank. So these ones here are done at f2.8, and because he's in the corner here, it is getting a bit more light. This is not artificial light that I'm holding up at this point, but you can kind of see that it's getting some of the iridescence in his tail, and that's what I was looking for. So here I can see that I have now introduced one of my tube lights. I actually had 2 tube lights, both on the corners of each tank, kind of like aiming in towards the center of the tank like that. And here you can see it's kind of lit up the whole tank in general. Those are some of the other little fish. But still, he wanted to just like do this, like hang out at the top of the tank. So that was not working for me. I tried with my finger to like lure him down, and it just wasn't happening. So what we ended up having to do was to drain quite a bit of water out of the tank. I actually took it down halfway, so that he was then at that halfway point, which is here in the tank. And that really helped, at least, you know, getting him kind of into the middle of the tank. He still wanted to hang out at the surface, which is kind of too bad, because that like top fin that, I don't know what it's called. Is it the dorsal fin? I'm not sure. The top fin on a fish, Phoenix is telling me yes, so hopefully we've got that right, is flat. So because he's on the surface, it's flattened down. I would love to have seen like all of his fins out, and that really cool like dorsal fin, because it's got some really neat edging on it. I would love to have seen that come up, but this is just part of photographing animals, like especially fish. You can't talk to him. You can't tell him to pose differently, as much as, you know, it can, like bettas are very responsive to like your finger on the glass. This guy, he didn't care. So you just work with what you've got, right? So here's a good example. He's up at the surface, and that top dorsal fin is like flattened down, but the rest of them are nice and relaxed, and I thought they look good. So that's kind of what I'm looking for when I'm culling through them, is I'm looking for ones that have some sharpness, detail in the face. If I think I'm going to keep the face in the image, I want to see some detail in the tail, and I definitely want to see some of the scales on the body in focus as well. I'll show you a couple examples here where that wasn't the case in some of my final images, and I still think it has a really cool effect. But those are my tips for culling. Okay, so next we're going to move on to Lightroom adjustments. So I edit in Lightroom, and I'm going to take you very quickly through how I would go about adjusting this photo here. Now, keeping in mind, we're starting with a photo that has a lot of light. I'm not picking one of those that are like really dark in the back of the tank where, you know, he wasn't getting any light off him. As you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, that's my tube light. So you can see how close he is to the tube light. And that's why most of his body here is illuminated. So I'm gonna bring the highlights down just a touch, and the shadows up just a touch. And the whites, I'm gonna move up until I start to see his face there getting a bit too light. So I'm gonna leave it there. I always bump the clarity up to 10 and the vibrance up to 10 as well. Going down to the tone curve, I'm gonna bring the highlights down a bit, bump up the lightness by just a teeny weeny bit. And then I'm gonna bring up the darks just a tiny bit as well, and then bring down the shadows. So that's introducing contrast into his, I was gonna say fur. Okay. Fins, there we go, fins. That's where I knew it was like an F word. I just didn't, I'm so used to saying fur. Okay, but now I can tell that because of the way I've adjusted it, and these are all global adjustments, by the way, so it's affecting the entire image. I want to bring down this part of his face because he's got like this white nose, mouth, yeah. He's got a white mouth. So I want to bring that down a bit because to me it looks a little overexposed. So I'm going to go into the masks, and I'm just collecting here a radial gradient mask, and I'm going to bring down the highlights there just a bit, and just to show you kind of the before and the after. That's what I'm looking for. I'm just looking to pull back a little bit more detail into his white mouth. I don't know, I want to say nose, but I know they have like a nose too, and it's in the same proximity. Okay, so what I'm going to try now is I'm going to go back into the masks, and I'm going to select background, which should, in theory, select everything that isn't your subject, which is the fish. But to be on the safe side, because these masks are not, like, it's using AI to make these selections. I'm just going to go in here and hit the subtract button and hit subtract subject. So just in case it picked up any little bits of him, now hopefully we're pretty good. What I'm trying to do here now is create that black background. I really like how the fish kind of pops off the black background in the tank. So I'm going to turn it all the way down. And because we've made that mask, as you can see up here, it has altered everything except for the fish or the subject. And you can see here a little before and after. What I'm doing here is I'm looking at these edges. So I'm looking at his tail, his fins, his face, and I'm just looking to see if the mask has done a good job with its selection around like his face and his features, and then we're not leaving out any important parts of the fish here. To me, this looks pretty good, so I'm gonna go with it. Next, I'm going to go over to my crop because I want to know how much of this light bar I have to take out, if anything. And I'm going to crop it in to about there. Maybe just back it up. What I'm looking for composition-wise within the crop is I want his head to be in this like centered block within the middle 2/3 lines. So that looks pretty good to me. I'm also looking at the distance at the bottom of the frame and the top of the frame with where his fins are. I might bring it in just a tiny bit because I want it to be equal. Double click on that and there is our Lightroom edit. Next, what I would do is just take this over to Photoshop for a little bit of fine tuning. So to go over to Photoshop, I'm going to go into export. And I have a preset edit in Photoshop export that I like to do, but you can also go up to edit in and you can click Adobe Photoshop as well. So there's a couple different ways that you can get your image easily from one program to the other, and so that it syncs the edits. So once you've done the edit in Photoshop, it will sync it back over with your image in Lightroom. Okay, so now I'm over here in Photoshop. I like to edit in Photoshop with my Wacom tablet. This is just what I prefer to use because I can be a lot more precise with my pen than with my mouse. Again, keep in mind, I'm a professional photographer, so I have access to all of these little tools. You do not need these to do these little edits yourself. I only do it because I edit like 1 million photos a day, so it comes in really handy for me. So here in Photoshop, I'm going to click and grab the healing tool, and I'm just going to start kind of removing these little bits. You can zoom it in, and there's just like, I mean, I don't want to say they're imperfections because it's part of my fish, but you just never know. It might be like little fragments in the water that were kind of floating around. Some of these I can tell are like hot pixels from the digital camera. Maybe there was a little dust on the sensor, something like that. You never know. So I'm just kind of fixing it up a little bit, just making sure that that brush is doing a good job. And I think basically he looks okay. I'm just kind of scanning around his body. Now I want to take out this water line at the top. So to do that, I'm going to hit the clone brush. And I'm going to select just some of this dark pixels down here. And I'm just going to kind of go up through here and just get rid of some of this water line. Now, this isn't like a complete black image. I can see that there's probably some reflection on the glass a little bit here. And there was also some reflection caused by the tube light that was in the corner. So that's why you got to be very careful when you're photographing through glass, is because you get a lot of reflections, which is why I went with the whole blanket over the head trick, which I'm sure you had a lot of fun watching in the first episode, but it is actually super duper handy. And I'm going to show you why when we go back to Lightroom so you can see one of my blooper images. Okay, there's one more thing I wanted to do in Photoshop here. Now I have some external plugins. I have a program called Topaz, and I have their denoise and their AI sharpen. I can see noise in this fish, and I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So see all this like graininess on his head and on his eye and in here? That is digital noise. And I'm going to try and smooth that out a little bit, but I don't want to go too crazy because I want the image to still have sharpness. I want to be able to see the scales and all of that. So I'm going to create a new layer. So just Control J. And then I'm going to go up here to my topaz things, and I'm going to go to denoise first and just quickly run this through the severe noise filter. Now you can see the difference in the scales right here and how it's lost detail through the sharpening process. That's just kind of what happens, but that's why I do it on a layer, and I'm going to show you next how to kind of reduce that. So what I don't like about what it's done is it's just too much of the effect. I want to kind of tone it down a little bit, keep some of the noise reduction, but not as much as what it's done. So I'm going to go up to the opacity here, and I'm going to bring the opacity down halfway, there we go. And just kind of do a little before and after with the eyeball here and just see how much of a difference that has made. If I zoom in, that's before and that's after. So it has reduced noise, but like I said, it does also reduce some sharpness. So I'm just going to flatten that layer and then add another one. So Control J. And I'm going to go into the AI sharpen, or sharpen AI, whatever you would like to call it, and just see if we can bring back some of the sharpness, but without the noise. So it's always this fine like balance. It's like a teeter-totter between noise and sharpness, and we're trying to like bring in elements of both. Okay, so it's always helpful to zoom in. I know it's like called pixel peeping, but you're really, you know, your best interest, you're really trying to pay attention to the integrity of the image. Now I've cropped this in quite a bit, so it's already lost some information, but I don't want it to lose any more. So wow, this software is incredible. Can you see that? So here is the after, and here's the before. Like I'm looking in here in these scales and in here, like this is the sharpen program, right? Like look at this, like it just brings out all of this detail and information. But to my eyes, it looks too sharp. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna back it out a little bit again so that it's not, you know, so pixelated in my face. And I'm gonna tone down the opacity. I'm gonna bring it down to 60%. And then I'm just gonna have another little before and after. And I think that that has done the job for me. So I'm going to flatten that and save it, and I will see you back in Lightroom. Okay, so now we're back in Lightroom. Here is what we started with before we went over to Photoshop, and now here is where we are with the final product. I think that this is a really great edit. I would, again, rather he not be flattened up against the surface of the water. I'd rather his fins be out, but hey, that's how it goes. Right, I promised you I was going to show you some examples of what not to do. So what you can see in these is the reflection of my hand and the reflection of my lens. That's a problem because, well, I don't want me in the image, nor do I want this to happen. So if you see here, the reflection of my hand has gone over top of the fish's face. So good luck editing that out. No, I mean, you're just not going to do it, right? It completely ruined these two images here, and these as well. Not that they're good ones anyway, but you get the point. So this is why I did the whole blanket over the head thing, is to try and avoid this from happening. I had to stop doing it at some points because it was just so dang hot under that blanket, but I just wanted to show you like what I was trying to avoid with it. So now I'm going to show you some of my favorite images from the shoot, and I'm just going to talk about why I like them. So with this first picture here, what I really kind of liked about this is not only his body position and the fact that he looks like he's swimming down, but I love that we've got two different lighting scenarios going on here that were happy accidents because I did not have my tube lights out at this point. So his tail is getting backlit by, I mean, the only light that was on is the light in the aquarium. So it's putting light through his tail. So you can see that it looks see-through and you can kind of see through it. I love that look, that like backlit looks cool. But the front of him, as you can see with the sun, the light that's like reflecting off the top of his head, you can see this like white line here. That is light that I guess is also coming from the light in the aquarium that is illuminating his face. So he's getting lit from the back and lit from the front, all by the same light. I don't know how that happens. Only with a fish that's like this thin can that ever happen. So this was just a cool, happy accident kind of photo. And it just so happened to be in focus. That's another good thing. I wanted to show you my snail. So as I was shooting, this was kind of like off camera. This little guy decided to like inch his way across the tank right in front of me while I was trying to shoot. So he's kind of in like some of the shots in the background. But then I was like, why don't I just try and take a macro shot of my snail? Like, he's cool too, right? I love his little mouth. He's just so awesome. And these little antennas sticking out. Love these guys. Okay, this was another happy little accident. So you just never know what's going to happen. You can't predict some of these things. So this is not two bettas. What's happening here is this right here is a reflection in the top of the water. So I must have been kind of like down low shooting up or something. I don't even know. I don't know how this happened, but this is a reflection. I did not flip it and create that. So I kind of thought that was kind of dope because people like intentionally will do these things, but it just kind of happened naturally. I don't think it's necessarily the best pose of the fish necessarily, but I really love this like red ring around his pupil and his eye. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, this picture here I think is awesome. And the reason I love it so much is I get to see his body in this like different kind of shape. He's kind of curled up, he's turning, but then look at his face. Like the little sliver of focus, as you can see, has like just hit the edge of his fin and his eyeball and his mouth. The rest of it is like completely blown out of focus. And I don't mind that at all. I think that this image would look completely different and worse if it was all in focus. I love that his cute little, I want to say nose. I'm pretty sure these are nose holes right here, okay? I don't know all of my fish anatomy, but I think that his nose and his mouth and his eye, love it. Love seeing that. I love it. Okay. This one here, again, just an upward projection of the fish. I thought it was super cool. I really loved it. I loved that it was pretty much all in focus from the tip of his mouth to the end of his tail and all of his scales. I love that. He's kind of on the same plane. And you can see like this little, like these little side fins. What are these called? Phoenix, help me. Yeah, he doesn't have a clue either. I'm not sure. Oh my God. Okay, this picture here, I tried to kind of recreate the one that I did of Cuddles the fish. That was my award-winning image. Again, if you want to see more about that, you can go back into my last episode. Not only do I show you the fish, I also show you the big piece of waller that I had made out of it and the award that I won. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, so I tried to recreate it here with just like the where the tail starts on the fish, where the tail meets the scales, and just keeping some of the detail in there. It's still got that like painterly look that's kind of happening on the tail, which I think is super cool. That is just like, again, a happy little accident that's happening either in the editing process or it's part of his tail. Like, I don't even know. I think it's probably got something to do with like breakdown of pixels as well, because this is truly zoomed in like so much to get, you know, the like butt of the fish. The fishes have butts. I mean, come on, of course they do. That's what I call it. That's funny. All right, so this picture is another really great shot, I think. I mean, technically it's not all in focus, so one might say that this is crap, but I really like it because his head, look at his head. Like, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. It is sharp, it is in focus, it has like that iridescence, it's got the reflection, it's got the red ring around his eye, it's got that little flippy fin on the side that I don't remember. Finding Nemo would probably tell me because he had the problem with the fin. Anyway, but the rest of him, like the focus just trails off throughout the fish, and I love that. I love that it goes to like this like softness, and that I think directs your focus to the head of the fish. That's where you want to be making that like eye contact. So love this one. So happy with how some of these turned out. Okay, this one I kept is like, I don't know, I kind of played around with the composition of this one, kind of turned it and stuff, just to try and see what I liked. I mean, The favorite part of betta fish are their fins, right? And I just think that it is like nature's canvas has just exploded all over his tail. It's got all kinds of colors, all kinds of dimension. There's light shining through it. There's light shining at it. Like, there's just so much going on here. So I really loved it. So I kept it as just like, again, another tail shot. Here's another full body shot. Oh, that top dorsal fin is almost out. Like, it's almost there, but you can kind of see like some of the spikes to it. Again, not something I see in everyday life. As he's over here chilling in his tank, I don't get to see that top fin up as much. Again, I love that his head is in focus, his body is soft, but then bam, is like that big tail at the end, and it's got some sharpness to it as well. Love that. And this is just a very similar shot than the other ones, like a full body shot. There's more in focus here, and yeah. So I've got 10 images that I really liked out of like 1,000 that I took. So there you have it. I hope that shows you some of the behind the scenes process from, you know, the amount of images I took that actually didn't work well at all to the small portion that actually, you know, did, and how I go about culling them, what I'm looking for, and how to go about editing them. If you don't have software like Lightroom and Photoshop, I do, because this is what I do for a living. There are lots of other software platforms out there that you can use on your computer or on your phone to help get you started. I really want to encourage you to try taking some photos of your fish. I think it's a super fun thing to do. You do not need all of the bells and whistles equipment like I have, but if you do have access to that kind of stuff, I hope that this tutorial and the one that I filmed that you can check out again will help you decide how you want to go about taking pictures of your own fish. I do caution you though, do not take your cell phone and like put it inside the aquarium with your fish. That would just be like wrong, I think. I don't think that would work very well. Do you think? No, we don't advise. But if you have a GoPro or something waterproof, go ahead and give it a shot. If you end up taking photos of your fish, I would absolutely love to see them. So please post them and tag me at dogtography.ca so that I can see them, share them, like them. And until next Saturday, go make some memories with your pets. Okay, I'll see you next week. Bye for now.